Welcome to Inner Power Insights, the show where we bring you inspiring stories, groundbreaking insights, and actionable advice to help you live your best life. Okay, let's be real. How many times have you wondered if that kale salad you ate for lunch is actually doing anything for your health? Or maybe you've thought, could chocolate really be as healthy as they say? Well, today, we're diving into the science that separates fact from fiction when it comes to food. And trust me, you're going to love what you learn. We're thrilled to have Dr. William Lee on the show today. You may know him from his New York Times bestselling book, Eat to Beat Disease, or his guest appearances on podcasts like Lewis Howes and Mel Robbins. Dr. Lee is not just a physician and scientist, he's also a food detective. He's the guy who can tell you how your morning coffee or your favorite dessert might actually be helping your body heal. In this episode, you'll discover how to turn your favorite foods into powerful allies for your health. Why angiogenesis? Don't worry, we'll explain it. Could be your new favorite word. And, spoiler alert, yes, chocolate and tea do make the list of superfoods. But it's not just about eating healthy. Dr. Lee's groundbreaking research shows how small, simple changes to what you eat can lead to big transformations in your energy, immunity, and overall well-being. So, whether you're a die-hard foodie, a health nerd, or just someone who loves discovering how to live a longer, healthier life, this episode is for you. Grab your headphones, maybe a snack, preferably one Dr. Lee would approve of, and let's dive into this fascinating conversation.
Dr. William, welcome to Inner Power Inside. I am so excited that you're here today with us.
Thanks, Valery. It's a real pleasure to be here.
You have an impressive resume. I can go on and on and on and introduce and tell our listeners who you are and what you do. I already did that with the introduction, but I'm going to jump in and I'm going to start with the question of your journey of becoming a doctor. Did you always want to be a doctor? How did you choose this field, and who inspired you?
Great question. I think I've wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to go into medicine from the time I was a young child. I was super inspired by a neighbor, a family friend of ours who immigrated from Italy. And he was the doctor 5 doors down from where I lived. And I somehow saw him as a hero of some sort because whenever anybody had a medical issue, he would be the person who would we would call, and he would walk up to the house with his black bag, come to the house, and something that was frightening or scary or we didn't know what to do, he always seemed to know what to do, and then everything would be better by the time he left, and we'd all feel a sense of relief. And I think that wound up leading me to become more interested in not just caring for others, but doing it in a very knowledgeable way. And I love science, so I'm kind of a science geek. And ultimately, I became a scientist. I'm a vascular biologist. I study blood vessels, your circulation, and ultimately, I went to medical school. But I do remember with this mentor of mine, this inspiration of mine. I did ask him if he would take me into the hospital to see what he was doing, and he was gracious and enough to take me into the hospital, which was a scary place when you're a kid. Nobody wants to go to the hospital when you're a kid. But I was so fascinated, at all the things that were happening, all the machines and all the busy people, and and it made me realize just what how illness was such a burden. You don't see all the sick people when you're well and you're just in your neighborhood or whatever, but then when you go into the hospital, you realize just how powerful illness actually is and the amount of suffering that's out there. And so it made me really want to go into field, and I think that uh, and I think this is a common story for a lot of people who go into medicine. They have a personal story or a personal reason. I mean, I can tell you when I was probably 10 years old, my mother had a suddenly had a very rapid heartbeat, and my dad was away, and she was weakened and almost collapsed, and it scared the bejesus out of me as a kid, and um, I always wanted to do something where I would know how to actually help my mom. Ultimately, I help her overcome stage 4 endometrial cancer. So something worked out for that. But yeah, these are all parts of the same journey. I think a lot of people who go into medicine are, and it's a steep road. It's a very long road. It's definitely not for everyone. There's many easier ways to make money, many easier ways to, get respect. There's better ways to actually get your life on the road when you're young, but there's nothing that beats to me the privilege I feel of having the knowledge to be able to help others. That's something that really is very important to me in what I do every single day.
I'm so glad you said that because I remember when I was young and back in the days for our young listeners, there's
Mm,
one physician for everything, right? Because now we have so many for every area of the body. But back in the days, it was one doctor and you would call and it would come into the house. And like you said, that sense of feeling like, oh my God, like he's here, I'm going to be okay.
yeah.
I'm going to be okay. And I have my daughter and she was young and she has severe asthma. And no
Mhm.
matter what happened, every time at home, I would panic. But the minute that I would take her to the hospital, you feel like, okay, she's safe. Like doctors are here,
Yeah.
doctors are around. And I'm so glad that you mentioned that because I know, like you said, there's a lot of ways to make money. There's a lot of ways to get respect. But that sense of like almost, I always say that like almost like seeing God. Like God is with you, and when the doctor is there, you feel so safe. Like sometimes it doesn't work that way, but it just that's how I feel.
Well, it's part of our human nature, I think, to be anxious when we feel out of control. And I think illness is one of those things that make us feel like we're not in control and therefore feel anxious, and it can be fearful. It can cause fear as well. Um, so that's one of the things I think is part of the privilege of what I do for a living is that I have the responsibility to be able to help people feel less anxious because there's something I might be able to contribute to helping them understand what's going on, which then gives them a better sense of control. And look, life is uncertain. We don't know what our journey is going to be like. And no matter how well good a planner you are, there's always going to be something that's going to surprise you. Sometimes those surprises are fantastic, like the lot, you feel like you won the lottery kind of thing. Something amazing happens to you, but also we wind up hitting bumps in a road, or sometimes real tragedies occur, or big surprises. Nobody expects to get the breast cancer diagnosis or the colon cancer diagnosis or the dementia diagnosis. Like those are things that are just part of life. And I think that we need to find ways, healthy ways, to be able to stick with our own program and not to get derailed by that. So medicine is actually part of that support network.
Yeah, yeah. And as you said beautifully, because we don't realize until we go to the hospital. And then when you go to the hospital, you realize how much we take for granted when everyday life goes past by. We're doing our thing and we don't realize when you end up in the hospital, it's kind of a little too late. So, with that being said, you have a book, Eat to Beat Disease. You talk
Mm.
about the body natural defense system. Can you elaborate on that and how those systems together works to promote a healthy and longevity?
Yeah, well, listen, this is a great segue from where we started, which is my beginnings. When I went to medical school, I wanted to help people, obviously, and my book, Eat to Beat Disease, isn't a book about disease. It's actually a book about health.
Yeah.
All right. So by beating disease, you actually get to maintain your health, protect your health, and avoid disease as well. But here's kind of how I got this idea. The nugget of this idea started many, many years ago, because when I was in medical school, and for anybody who has gone to medical school or a doctor listening to this, or might have a family member who's a doctor, and you might have heard their stories, this is going to be a common theme. And when I was in medical school, I sat there and it was like drinking out of a fire hydrant. I had to memorize books, volumes of diseases and bacteria and antibiotics, what's under a microscope. Like it's taking 4,000 years of knowledge and packing it into 4 years and then making you memorize and get tested on it like every single week. All right. um, it's a lot of work. I mean, it's a huge amount of learning. And the way that medical training and education happens is that we have mentors, people who have come before us, who teach us, and we're really lucky to have good teachers. In fact, physician. The word physician and doctor actually means teacher. It comes from
Mm.
the original origin of the word teacher, and so we're and I teach other people behind me as well. So this is actually part of the legacy of medicine, that is we teach each other. So I would go around the hospital and learn about liver cancer and hepatitis and lung disease and asthma and diabetes and dementia and obesity and thyroid disease, you name it. I was memorizing everything. Okay. And one day I went to my doctor's, my attending, my mentor, professor, and I said, okay, I get it. Like there's a lot of diseases to memorize. So I'm doing it. Okay. But can you tell me, in addition to teaching me about disease, can you tell me what health is? I know what liver hepatitis is, but what is health? What's a
Right.
healthy liver? Or, tell me. And, the amazing thing, Valerie, was that my professors could not answer me.
Yeah.
They would look at me and they scratch their heads. They're like, what a silly question that is. Like, it's a stupid question. Health is just when you're not sick, it's the absence of disease. Like, why do you even need to ask that question? You're here in medicine to learn about, how to take care of sick people.
Take care of.
That always struck me wrong. Okay. It never sat well with me. I had a question. It was a genuine question. I wanted to be answered. What is health? And guess what? I realized the medical community doesn't focus on health. In fact, it's not even defined. And so that's why I set out to do my research to figure out what health actually is. And that's what I wrote about my book, Eat to Beat Disease. Health is not just the absence of disease. It is, but it's way more than that. Our health, my health, your health, Valerie, is the result of our body's hardwired health defense systems. We are born with health defense systems. They formed
Mm.
in our little bodies when we were still in our mom's womb. So think about it. Your dad's sperm at your mom's egg. You were just a little ball of cells in the uterus, in the womb. You grew up over 9 months into a baby that came out, at 9 months, and bada bing, you were, kind of off to the races to the rest of your life, right? Well, while you were in mom's womb, while we were in mom's womb, our bodies, in addition to forming our ears and our lips and our toenails and our hair and our heart and our liver and our kidneys, also formed health defenses. And these are baked into our system. And our health defenses, when we are born, start firing on all cylinders. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
From the day we're born to our very last breath, our health defenses actually keep us healthy. Why do you think kids are so healthy in general? Okay, you get a little cold. How come they don't get dementia? How come they don't get you know, uh, bad diabetes? How come they don't lose their vision? How come most kids don't get cancer? These things do happen in kids, but at a far lesser rate than they happen in older
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
So my research is focused on what are those health defenses in our body that keep us healthy from
Mm-hmm.
childhood to old age, okay? And what can we eat to actually boost our body's self defenses? Because and the reason I got interested in food also goes back to my origin story. I grew up in the town of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. It's kind of a working class town, Rust Belt of the United States. I mean, it's a remarkable city. I visit it periodically. Still have a lot of friends there, but it's a multi-ethnic town, kind of like Manhattan is,
Right.
New York City. You got lots of different people from lots of different parts of the world. Everybody's got their own origin story. And I remember growing up in a town where we had folk festivals and lots of different cultures would celebrate the great food that they're proud of in their culture. And I was
Mm.
sampling them and I was listening to them tell stories about it. I was like, how great is this? Like, to be able to sample something important from somebody from a different culture. It was the Germans, it was the Irish, it was the Italians, it was the Filipino, like it was amazing. And so I never forgot as I was going through college, this joy of food that was so interesting to me. And I like to cook. And so before I went to medical school, I know we were talking about my medical school years, I actually did a gap year. And what I did in my gap year is I went to live in Italy and in Greece to so I could personally observe during my gap year the links between food, health, and culture.
Right.
So, and this is long before anybody was talking about the Mediterranean diet, by the way. But by the time I went to medical school, I could never forget some of those lessons that I learned. Living abroad in Italy and in Greece, meeting the people there, going to the markets, watching them cook, eating the foods with their families, talking to doctors over there, seeing, the pride, local pride of the different types of cuisine. Like we talk about Italian cuisine in the United States. People in Italy don't talk about Italian cuisine. They talk about food from Venice. They talk about food from Rome. It's it's so complex, and people are so proud of their origins. I mean, for your show, one of the things I want to say is that we all come from someplace.
Yes.
I know we all want
Yes.
to be Americans, and we all want to be the same, and all that. Okay, but the reality is that we all do come from someplace. We'll have an origin story. Maybe it's your mom and dad. Maybe it's your grandparents. Maybe it's your great parents. But listen, we all came from someplace, all
Right.
right? And we have something to be proud of where we came from. And that origin story is something that we should all be really grounded in, rooted in, and proud of. And it's actually something we carry with us all throughout our lives. And so, and I think that for me to appreciate food in that context gave me a different way of approaching health, which is what my research. What could we eat that people are proud of in their own cultures that actually help to support their health and allow them to live long and healthy lives, like I saw people in the Mediterranean when I did my gap year there, and in Asia. I also went to Asia to see people who are living long and prospering. Right? That Star Trek, live long and prosper. I've
Yep.
seen it. And food can be part of that. So I study food as medicine as it relates to culture and health and healing, and that's something that allows me to connect to people. I think in a way that people really want to hear about these days. They don't want to just hear about the drugs and the diagnosis and the all the stuff that comes out of the hospital. They want to hear a little bit about their humanity, and so that's something another privilege I get to do.
Oh, that is so great. That is so great. I love what you said. Food. I love food. People love food. We celebrate everything with food. And talk about cultural. I'm from Afghanistan. So I remember, like you said, we used to go to the butcher, fresh meat, bring it home, go to the market, fresh vegetable, cook it and eat it. And that's it. It was like never worried about calories, never worried about cholesterol, never worried about anything because, like you said, food was something happy. It was like I'm happy to eat, or we celebrate with things, but it affects our health so much. And I'm glad you mentioned that because you can't just always be on a diet. You can't always measure the calories, which is that's to a certain point, that's fine. But then it goes to the level of that we avoid that, that defense mechanism that grows in your body, like you said, as a child, and we interrupt that because we don't know what to eat, what not to eat.
So let's talk about
Let's
Afghan
talk about
food
it.
for a second. All right.
Okay.
So this is a great example of where you were talking about going to the butcher and eating meat and everything else. Totally fine. Like that's what people did and still do in Afghanistan. But what about Afghan cuisine that stands out as really healthy? There are dishes, baking pumpkin. If you ever had that,
Yep. Yep.
baby pumpkin
Yeah.
baked together,
Yeah.
okay, with spices like cinnamon and nutmeg, put in
Nutmeg.
it,
Yeah.
and you have yogurt. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
now all of a sudden you actually have dietary fiber, and you have spices that are anti-inflammatory, and then with yogurt you have a probiotic food that helps to support your gut microbiome, and healthy gut bacteria is one of your health defense systems, lowers inflammation and helps you become mentally healthier as well. And so again, I just took, your something you connect to deeply, as you were
Yeah.
saying it, and I
Yeah.
just showed you some foods that, you might recognize that actually are healthy as well. And that's the kind of connection I think that we should be having with our food. It's a healthy
What
connection.
food?
Don't fear your food. Don't feel
Mm-hmm.
guilty or ashamed of food. You should actually focus on those things that you naturally relate to, that you love
Mm.
to eat, that are good for you, and then don't eat too much.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Because I never worried about food too much when I was there. Once I came over here, got so overwhelmed. But like you said, we use a lot of spices. We use like
Mm,
turmeric almost and everything. And now
yeah,
they're saying that turmeric anti-inflammatory. Yogurt. We're very yogurt based. Even when we do the kebab and stuff, we do it. We marinate it in the yogurt and
yeah.
onions and garlics and all that good stuff, and then you cook it. So now
By the
let's
way,
talk about.
by the way, I want to just for 1 second here, I want to
Yeah,
actually just for anybody listening. So marinating a barbecue, right?
right.
So we're not going to talk about whether eating meat is good or bad. That's a complicated story, but I can tell you when you marinate meat with veggies like onions and garlic, or sometimes with citrus and fruits and vegetables, when you put that meat on the grill, guess what? The marinade has an antioxidant effect that protects your meat from gaining some of the cancer causing carcinogens. So you actually have a healthier version with marinating the meat. And again, this is modern science being applied to ancient culture. And I think that
Yes.
this is actually one of the things that, at least from my perspective, you know, um, we're going back to the future, like we're moving
Mm.
forward, but we're beginning to appreciate what some of these ancient practices really meant and why the food tastes so good.
Simplicity, and
Simplicity.
not, yeah, thinking about it too much.
Yeah,
I know you talked about, I heard you talked about some food that is really good in order to boost our inside symptoms to fight the disease, or forget to fight the disease before even you get anything. And like you said,
prevent.
like children that are growing and they don't really care about that, but they're so healthy. So give me some example of some food that you really highly recommend for people to add to their dietary uh, intake in order to just start something healthy this year.
Yeah. Well, look, before I give you some foods, and my research has covered more than 300 foods now.
Yes.
Okay. And if you want to get the list of foods, I have the big list in my books, Eat to Beat Disease, Eat to Beat Your Diet. If you want to hear me talk
Yes.
more about food, you can go to my YouTube channel, or my website, drwilliamlee.com. But the key thing is not just to memorize the list of foods. People always ask me, Dr. Lee, give me like the 5 foods I should be eating right now and that I should stick with all the time. It's not that easy because we're all individual. But here's what we all should understand when we're choosing our food. And I'll give you and I'll tell you foods along with it. So our body's health is protected by our hardwiring. We've got 5 health defense systems. One's called angiogenesis. It's our circulation. We've got 60,000 miles worth of blood vessels in our body. That's a lot of that's a lot of mileage, okay?
A
In
lot.
fact, if I were to pull out every blood vessel from your body, Valerie, and line them up end to end, it would form a thread that I could wrap around the earth twice. Okay?
Mm.
And these blood
Wow.
vessels, your circulation, are the highways and byways for the oxygen you breathe and the nutrients that you eat from the food. All right? So when your blood vessels are healthy, the rest of your body can be healthy. And when your blood vessels are unhealthy, nothing else can be optimized for health. So that's one of your health defenses. How do you actually get good blood vessels? Guess what? Green tea or black tea can actually protect your circulation. Something
Mm.
easy to drink. Tea is what I call one of the holy trinities of beverages that you want to be healthy. Water, tea, and coffee. All right, very healthy for you. Um, Here's another health defense, which is the second health defense system are your body's stem cells. All right.
Yes.
Um, we're born with stem cells because we're all formed with stem cells. Remember when I told you dad's sperm met mom's egg and you're just a ball of
Yes.
cells? We all started as a ball, okay?
Mm.
Little ball of cells. In over 9 months, our stem cells, which is what we are made out of, these are cells that can become anything. They can become a nose, a lip, an ear, a kidney, a heart, a big toe. All right. And so we are all made of stem cells, every part of our body. And at 9 months, when we're born and the doctor cuts the umbilical cord,
Hmm.
there's some extra stem cells left over, like extra cans of paint when you're painting your room. Okay. You
Right.
got little extra around. Thank goodness we
Hmm.
got extra stem cells. Guess what? Those stem cells get packed away in our body. Get stored. Just like when you're done painting a room, you got extra cans
Right.
of paint, you put the lid on, and you put the paint in the garage, right? Or someplace
Right.
in the basement, just in case you need them. That's what happens to our stem cells. We got extra stem cells. In fact, we know how many extra stem cells. When you're born, we've got 70 million extra stem cells. Those get packed away in our body. Where do they get packed away? Okay, where's the storage areas of our body? In our bone marrow. Bone marrow, ossobuco, like the middle of a
Yeah.
big bone. That's
Yeah.
where the marrow is. That's where stem cells are packed. Some of them get packed in our skin. Some of them get packed in our body fat. Some of them get packed in our heart, in our lung, in our liver. So they get packed away. All right. Um, think about when you get done with the laundry, you're going to fold up your socks and your underwear and you're going to put them neatly in your drawers. That's what your
Right.
body does when you're born. They take all the stem cells and pack them away until you need
Anyway.
them. All right. And then when you need them, guess what? Your body will send signals. Your health defenses, your stem cells, our health defense will come out to rebuild, repair, and regenerate organs from the inside out. Inner health comes from stem cells. All right.
Right. Right.
So
Right.
that's a health defense system. What are some foods that actually help your health defenses? Well, guess what? Um, uh, uh, dark chocolate actually gets
Mm.
stem cells to come out. The plant-based material from chocolate, dark chocolate, cacao, causes stem cells to come flying out of your bone marrow like bees coming out of a hive, looking for what to repair, what to fix. Awesome, right?
Mm.
Um, Here's another one. Barley. Barley will also help stem cells come out of your body.
Right.
Dried fruit peel has got something called ursolic acid. So if you have dried fruit,
Mm.
with the peel dried onto it, that
Yeah.
will actually activate your stem cells as well. Black tea also activates your stem cells. So all extra virgin olive oil
Yeah.
also activates your stem cells. Third health defense system is your gut, healthy gut bacteria, 39 trillion bacteria in your gut. Okay, these are an ecosystem of bacteria that, when they are working well and happy, they lower inflammation in our body. They text message our brain to put us in a good mood. They help our metabolism get so we have more energy and our glucose is well utilized. They help our immune system function so we are able to fight off infection. And in fact, they help our immune system to fight off cancer that we might not see, these little microscopic cancers. That's how important our gut bacteria is. Okay, what do we do for our gut bacteria? Well, if you have fermented foods, yogurt, sauerkraut, kimchi, pickles, all right, they feed our gut bacteria by adding more healthy gut bacteria. And then if we have dietary fiber,
Right.
fiber seafood, broccoli, kale, cauliflower, that kind of stuff. But actually, some soft foods also are great sources of dietary fiber. Mushrooms, cook a mushroom.
Right.
It's hard to find something softer than that. Great dietary fiber. Avocado, you know, this
Right.
creamy avocado packed with dietary fiber. A pear, juicy pear, packed with
Right.
dietary fiber. Feeds the gut microbiome. When your gut microbiome is happy, it makes you literally your brain happier. You're in a better mood. So you want to
Mm.
eat enough gut bacteria to lower inflammation and do all these other good things. That's the third health defense. Fourth health defense is your DNA.
Mm.
Much more than a genetic code, our DNA protects us against the environment. Because, Valerie, you go outside on a nice sunny day, guess what? Sunshine is hitting your skin. How nice does that feel? Well, that's ultraviolet radiation, which can also cause mutations in your DNA, which can cause cancer, but it doesn't because your body can fix any mistakes, any mutations that happen on
Mm.
your DNA. Thank goodness. So, what are some things that can help your DNA repair itself and protect against mutations? Well, vitamin C containing foods, kiwi,
Mm.
strawberries, tomatoes, all can help to protect our watermelon, can protect with lycopene, can actually protect our DNA, help our DNA protect itself better. And then finally, the fifth health defense system is our immune system, which we know is important for invaders
Right.
from the outside as well as from the invaders from the inside. What are some great ways to boost immunity? Blueberries, uh,
Right.
ginger, turmeric, broccoli sprouts, mushrooms. great ways to boost our immune system so our immune defenses are strong and healthy. So these are really some of the foods that I kind of recommend that I to eat every day or switch them out. Your body loves your health defenses love diversity. They hate to
No,
eat the
yeah.
same thing all the time. So you got
No,
to
yeah.
mix it up.
No, I'm glad you mentioned that because see the way we're talking about it, I'm talking about from my cultural perspective that how I grew, and I'm not a doctor, but we were like, however you call it, whether because lack of food or because more activity because there was no cars and stuff like that. You eat less, you very active, but we didn't think of food that much. We just ate fresh food, whatever was
Yeah.
available. So I'm glad
Yeah.
that you bring it because when you listen to it that way, it's much easier to stay with those things and protect yourself versus if to go through every little thing. What food should I eat? What food should I not eat? Now, there's certain food that a lot of people in America, take for granted or really don't think is that important, but it really is. And I know you and I know that you know that more than tea, for example, tea and
Mm.
coffee. When it comes to coffee, we have a lot of stuff going on, but tea and coffee. I drink tea all day long. And a lot of people I know in America don't really drink that much tea. They drink coffee, but not so much tea. The other thing that I always think about that people don't find it really glamorous and fancy to eat is pomegranate. I know you like pomegranate. I love pomegranate and the benefit of that, right? Or some things that are we look at it, we're like, once in a while eat it, but it's so good for your stem health and stem system that repair it and rejuvenate it, right? So
Yeah.
if you talked about tea and coffee, now what about the caffeine? If some people can say, Dr. William, if I drink tea all day long or caffeine all day long, what about the caffeine?
This is why I'm saying that the foods that are right for our health as individuals varies from person to person. Some people are very sensitive to caffeine. I'm not, but some
Me
people
neither.
are, and I know that for sure. People like that will need to actually drink less, or maybe avoid coffee or tea, or have decaffeinated versions. And there's better, more beneficial decaffeinated versions than others. Um, but some people are allergic to tomatoes. Some people are allergic to strawberries. So I
To
think that
find that way.
it's personalized. The
Okay.
key is that there's so many great foods out there, and like in my books, I have like 200, 300 foods between my two books. I tell people, if you look at the list of foods that I've actually done research on, and you just take a magic marker or a highlighter, and you just highlight the foods that you already like,
Mm,
start with those foods because they're all over the place. You're going to be fine. So, like you told me, you like tea. All right, tea activates all your health defenses. How great is that? Okay. Now let's get into a little bit of the techniques of the tea. All right. You don't want to put milk in it,
I don't.
dairy. I know many people don't, but if you're
Dude.
drinking English afternoon tea, a lot of times they put milk in it or cream. The problem is that the dairy fat will form little soap bubbles around the polyphenols. So then when you
Okay.
drink it, it tastes good, nice and creamy. It's kind of mellow, but it actually washes the polyphenols down the hatch, and so you don't absorb most of it. You miss about 80% of it. You get about 20%.
Okay.
So you're missing out some of the good stuff. So straight on tea is good. I tell people, if you're going to sweeten your tea, don't use just regular granulated sugar like you get at the drive-through. How many sugars would you like? Added sugar in anything is not so good for you. Um, but if you sweeten with a little bit of honey, that's
Mm,
actually a good way of doing it, or natural sweeteners. Avoid artificial sweeteners. Turns out they can damage your gut microbiome, the healthy gut bacteria. That's not what you want to do. Um, and I would also say that the issue about coffee is not about the caffeine, the benefits of coffee. Actually, let me step back one bit. Caffeine actually can sharpen your brain. So many people, as they're aging, say, well, I don't want to lose my cognition. I want to be mentally sharp.
sure.
Turns out caffeine can be like a pencil sharpener. It makes you a
Mm-hmm.
little bit sharper. Drinking a ton of it and getting wired, that's not good. All
That's
right.
not good.
But a little touch of caffeine. This is why I think many people, in the morning, they have like the Italians, they take a little sip of espresso in the morning, boom, their brain is like on. and ready to
Yeah.
roll. And so, but again, it's very individual. But what's in coffee that's good is a polyphenol called chlorogenic acid. And chlorogenic
Okay.
acid um, improves your metabolism, helps to fight harmful body fat, is good for your circulation, lowers inflammation. Okay, that's one of the reasons that coffee is so good for you.
Mm.
It has all these other benefits. The benefits are not just the caffeine. Caffeine can be helpful. Some people are sensitive. Chlorogenic acid, really good for you.
Right, right. No, that's great because, like I said, a lot of people, there's little things that we don't do that can actually benefit your health too much. Now, here's a question that I hear all the time, and a lot of our listeners ask because they know you are coming in. When it comes to eating your food, no matter what you eat, is there a system how to eat your food? Because people say eat your protein first, then your vegetable, then your carb. Then I heard that eat your vegetable first, then your protein, then your carb. How is that thing works?
You know what? I uh, I've heard those as well. I've studied them a bit. Um, I will tell you how I eat, and then I'll tell you something about those principles.
Okay.
I try to think about eating by listening to my body first. Okay. What that means is that I don't eat if I'm not hungry. When I'm hungry, I pay attention and I try to find foods that I know are going to be good for me that I also like. All right.
Mm,
So healthy foods that I love, boom, like that's a no-brainer. So that means that every time I'm eating something healthy. Getting to know yourself is part of grounding. Like if you want
yes.
inner strength, you want to know who you are. All right. There's a lot of like, okay, what's your psychology and what's your background? Look, we all know what we like to eat. All right. And even though it's easy to say I like unhealthy food, I think most people will find there are healthy foods they also like to eat. I choose that. And then, I always make sure when I'm eating, I don't eat too much.
Mm,
um, I listen to my body. So there's an old Confucian saying called Hara Hachi Bun Mi. What that means is stop eating when you're 80% full. What that means is you don't eat until you're full. That's how, like when we're kids, are you full yet? No, I'm not full yet. Then eat some more, right?
right,
Eat till you're
right,
full. Clean your plate. When you listen to your body and not your mom, all right, and you stop eating when you're satisfied, not when
right,
you're full. And
right.
by eating slower, like they eat in cultures where people eat together and they're talking, and you
Talking,
know,
right.
they're not eating, like they're not shoveling food down their system. You listen to your body. You're like, oh, okay, I've had enough. All right. So I don't overeat. And then the other thing is that I don't feel like I have to eat every meal. So what your listeners may have heard about is something called intermittent fasting. And that's really where you're fasting, which means you're not eating. Intermittent means you're doing it um, sometimes. And people might have heard about intermittent fasting. It's good for longevity. It's good for your metabolism. It's good for losing body weight. Sure is. It's all true. Okay. But it's not something you need to be a robot to figure out how am I going to actually fit myself into this intermittent fasting box? Like, how can I possibly make my schedule work? Intermittent fasting is what we do every night when we're sleeping, because when you're sleeping, you're not eating, right? And when you're not eating, you're fasting. So every night when we're sleeping, and we're not sleeping all the time, so we're intermittently sleeping means we're intermittently fasting. So
Fasting.
when you're fasting and not eating, okay. By the way, fasting is kind of part of the religious culture in a lot of places,
Minus, yeah.
um, right? And that's actually good for you. And so
Yeah.
when you're fasting, your metabolism is switching gears away from
Mm,
storing fat to burning down fat. So that's why that you lose weight while you're sleeping at night when you're not eating. You don't have
mm.
to exercise to lose body fat. You can actually just go to sleep. All right.
Right,
Now,
right, right.
the longer you stretch out that time of not eating, the more efficient your metabolism is going to be by burning down extra harmful body fat. So, back to how I eat. I don't always eat breakfast. Sometimes I'll wake up and I'll take my time and I just will skip breakfast because I'll jump into my work or I'll do something else, and that's okay.
Right.
Because when you skip breakfast, you're extending until lunch your intermittent fasting time, so you're burning more body fat. Your metabolism is getting even better. Now, but people go, oh, well, like, isn't breakfast the most important meal? No, it's not. But my mom always told me to eat breakfast. Yes, when we were kids, we were all told by our mothers, hurry up
Right.
and eat and roll out of bed, eat something, and then go out to school so you get some nutrition in your brain to learn something, right? Turns out that's not true. As
Mm.
adults, we can, what I tell people like is if you want to even just get a little extra for healthy eating, when you wake up in the morning, don't eat something right away. Get up, take your time, get ready for the day, take a shower, get dressed. Before you go to the kitchen, um, open the door, go out for a quick walk, get some fresh air, walk your
Okay.
dog, um, check your email, scroll through, check some emails, read a book, you know, listen to a podcast, do something different. Okay, besides eating that knee jerk that we learned when we were children, and now at least an hour. And now you've extended your intermittent fasting for at least an hour. So if you don't want to skip breakfast, just from the time you wake up until you eat something, make sure there's an hour. That's easy. Anybody can do that. And now you've gained an extra hour. And by the way, so here's like, here, I'll tell you how it might work out. So let's say the night before, I'm trying to be really practical because most people like practical things.
Right.
The night before you have dinner, let's say most people eat dinner at 7 o'clock in the
Seven
evening.
o'clock. Yeah.
In America, most people eat no longer than an hour. I'm not talking about like, in other cultures where you eat for 2 or 3 hours. I'm
Yeah.
saying
Yeah.
that in America, like you eat dinner, it's an hour. When you put your dishes away at 8 o'clock, let's just use this as an example. That's it. You're done for eating for the day. Don't eat until the next day. No midnight snack. No munching. No munchies you're taking to sit down and watch TV. Don't go out to grab something to eat. That's it. When your dishes are put away, you are done. Okay?
Done. Right.
Now, let's say that's at 8 o'clock. And let's say you go to bed at 11 o'clock, maybe
Right.
later, maybe earlier. If you don't eat from 8 o'clock to 11 o'clock, that's 3 hours of no eating. Your body's already switching into gear, shifting into gear like a Ferrari, okay?
Right.
Because that's how our body is. It shifts gears, and your race engine in your body is shifting into fat burning mode because you're not eating. You just got
Right.
yourself 3 hours by not eating after you put your dishes away. Now, let's say you sleep 8 hours. You're supposed to sleep about 8 hours. That's a good number of hours for your overall health. 11 o'clock to 7 o'clock, that's 8 hours, okay? Trust me on that one. All right. Now, that's 8 hours. So it's three
Right.
hours from dishes away to eight
Two.
hours. That's 11 hours until you wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning. Now, remember I told you when you get up,
Don't
don't
eat
eat
right
right
away.
away. Wait for an hour, one more
Yeah.
hour. 11 plus one, 12 hours. Now you spent 12 out of 24 hours fasting. That
Fasting.
means that you've allowed your metabolism, your Ferrari, to shift gears to burn down extra harmful body fat half of the time that you're alive. Okay, half
Mm.
of your day. 50% of your day out of 24
Mm.
hours, 12 of them are spent with in kind of grooming your metabolism in race car mode. That's a way to eat as well. So it's not just what you eat, it's when you eat and how you
When
eat
you
that all can make a
right.
difference. Yeah.
Yes. 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 No, that's so important because on your book, latest book that you have, Eat to Beat Your Diet, you talk
Mm,
about metabolism a lot. And again, the misconception of a lot of information out there, people can get confused. So one of the
mm,
things back in the days, I know it was very popular that you have to eat a small portion every 2 3 hours in order to keep your metabolism going faster. It's like a putting a log on the fire, right?
mhm.
But then the intermittent fasting comes in and people are like, wait a minute, which one is better? Do I have to eat 5 6 times a day or do I have to fast? Which
Yeah.
one, how do I keep my metabolism high?
Here's the absolute truth of it, is that uh, we should eat at regular times every day because our body gets used to and likes to actually have routines when we're eating.
Okay.
Okay. But it you don't actually have to eat small meals all the time. Your body is well designed to be able to eat 3 meals a day, 2 meals a day. Don't eat too much to take that
As long
energy,
as
store it. Okay. And then when the time between meals, it burns the energy and your metabolism lets you burning off energy. You got plenty of fuel. to be able to move.
Yeah,
And in my book, Eat to Beat Your Diet, it's not a diet book. It's an anti-diet book
I
because
know.
I show you how you can actually live a really delicious life, eating great foods, enjoying your food in the right quantities without super stressing out about like the timing. I could never, ever um, maintain any type of schedule where I have to eat 5 or 6 times a day, you know. And by the way,
Right.
your body doesn't like that. Like it's the idea, a lot of these kind of diets are sometimes founded on a little bit of science, but usually they're all developed by well-intentioned people who are not scientists. Okay, and then
Mhm.
they promote the diet, and that's why it's so confusing. Is that everybody has an opinion, and everybody has these days everybody has a bully pulpit on social media to be able to tell you something. I always say, look, it's my privilege to be able to do the work I do. One of the responsibilities I take is to be a trusted resource. I just tell you the science. I tell you
Yeah.
what's been shown in human studies clinically. Go with that. And it doesn't actually take you too far away from the old days, the old ways, the
No.
simple ways.
Right.
And, the more complicated we get, the harder it is to stick to. And if you want to be healthy, have a healthy metabolism, you don't want to be memorizing stuff because stress itself
I
knocks
was
your
just gonna get
metabolism
there.
off a whack. Yeah.
Right, 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 right. Simplicity, like we said, we talked about simple, keep it simple, simpler,
Mm,
the easier, less stress. Now,
mm,
I know you talked about the medical part of it and the technical part of how the body works and how what are the good food and all that. Let's switch gear on other stuff that people should do in order to keep themselves healthy and living long and longevity. And one of them you just mentioned is stress. I know sleep is stress and
hmm
things, there's certain things that it doesn't matter how healthy you eat, it doesn't matter what you do, it damages your body.
mm.
How effective, what effect that the stress has on your body when it comes to longevity, when it comes to staying healthy, when you're stressed out all the time, every time,
Yeah.
eating, working, relationship, all that stuff.
Well, remember I told you our health is defended by our health defense system,
Right.
maintained. Well, it turns out that stress, and there's different kinds of stress, but let's just say stress in general, actually damages our body's health defenses
Okay.
in different ways. And so, if you're damaging your circulation, your stem cells, your gut microbiome, your DNA protection, your immune system,
Immune system.
guess what? Your shields are going down, your shields to protect your health, and now you're more vulnerable to illness. And that's why people who
Yeah.
are stressed out all the time tend to get more sick. Ever notice that, like when you're younger, like when you're super stressed out, that's when you get the cold or the flu,
Yeah.
and that's true also for people who can get more serious diseases, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, even cancer. We see these correlations with more stress. Now, what does stress do besides take down your health defenses? Well, it wears you out mentally as well. You know, our mental fortitude, our resiliency gets worn down if we're living in too much stress. And listen, we all experience this, during the pandemic. Like all of a
Yeah.
sudden, out of the blue, something super scary happens around the world and it wears on us. And that's why when you see so many people are going, bah humbug, I don't give a crap about that stuff anymore. It's because we are, when people say, I'm so done with that, it's because they've gotten to the end of their wits end.
Mm.
They're so stressed out they can't take it anymore. And it's the body protecting itself by saying, I just can't, la, 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 I can't actually deal with this anymore. It's a self protective mechanism as well. Okay. A little stress is good for you.
Right.
Little bits of stress, if you don't use it, you're going to lose it. So stress keeps us sharp on our feet, keeps our muscles strong. Just by exercising, you're stressing your muscles. That's called physical stress. But you don't want to actually be breaking rocks in a prison camp, all day long, 24 hours. Like that kind of physical stress will wear you out. Emotional stress is another thing, bad relationship, bad marriage, bad workplace environment, bad boss, dysfunctional family dynamics, all
Family.
those
Yeah.
things, really, really stressful. Look, I mean, families are complicated, relations are complicated. You have to find a way to protect yourself, all right? Because that kind of nonstop stress is like having termites in the wood in your house. It'll eat you alive. It'll chew up at the structure of your mental fortitude. So you got to take it upon yourself to figure out how to dodge that bullet a little bit. You might not be able to avoid all of it, but find a little safe space for yourself. Where's your own safe house, your safe place? All right. And, if you need to make your own safe word, so when you start feeling stressed out, just say it silently in yourself, your own safe word, and go someplace safe. All right. These are little tricks that I think are so helpful for maintaining health in a world that seems um, uh, so unsafe these days. There's a lot of stress out there. You know,
Mm,
is it the economy? Is it the war? Is it the politics? Is it whatever? The
everything's something.
climate? Everything is stressful. And that's why I think now more than ever, if you want to live long, vibrant life, you need to protect your health. You need to prevent getting like these chronic illnesses, but you need to manage your stress as well.
Well, that's what it is, because it's not like you said, little stresses. Okay, once they become chronic, once you get used to it and you're just doing it over and over again. And
Hmm.
I love that in the beginning you said, what is health? Because to us, it's like if I'm sick, I'm not healthy. But if I'm going every day about my life doing things, not necessarily. That doesn't mean you're healthy, because you're not eating right, you're not sleeping right, you're stressful, and then that can lead to a chronic illness later on.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, listen, there are no magic bullets or magic pills you can take to make all of life's hardships go away, all the stressors go away. And there's no magic pills that make you immune to any disease. So, this is why, going back to simplicity of living the best life you
Yeah.
can without getting too complicated, without getting too stressed, without trying to remember somebody's special diet or somebody's rules of, what the only five things you can actually eat, which is why I told you at the very beginning, I get asked all the time, like, what should I eat, Dr. Lee? I never really try to give people a prescription for food. In
No.
fact, this whole idea of prescription diets, yeah, I'm ambivalent about those. I think that, if you've got diabetes, there are definitely better diets you can eat, but I don't think one size fits all is a good
No,
solution.
no. And that's why I'm so glad that I'm talking to you, because that's what needs to be told to people, because we look different, right? We
Mm,
feel different. We are
yeah.
different. So, and I love that you said that, know yourself first. Like you said, you don't eat breakfast. That's your thing. That works for you. That may not work for
Hmm.
somebody else,
No.
but it's all self-awareness,
Yeah.
right? You have to pay attention to your, like, the cultures that you grew up, the culture that we have around the world, the things, that
Hmm.
simplicity that we apply. But that's goes back to you of who you are, and
That's right.
that's where it starts. That's what we should really, because one glove doesn't fit all, like you said. That pill that you prescribe maybe work for somebody, but it will not work for somebody else.
If the glove doesn't fit, you must acquit. That old
No.
OJ thing that got him out of jail. I mean, listen, that's the that's the whole idea is that like it's all about the individual. We should celebrate our individuality. We should, ground ourselves in who we are internally. That's actually one of the most important things we can do, and that's true physically. That's true emotionally. That's true, from a
Spiritually.
cognitive perspective and spiritually as well. We remember I told you what I said at the very beginning. We all come from someplace, and in addition to our cultures and our family history, we all come from inside ourselves as well. That's a
Yeah.
really important point.
And like you said, the fasting we have in my culture, we fast for a month, because that's part of our religion. And
Mm,
I did it since you start, like, when you're 10 years old,
mm,
and you're doing it. And I didn't know nothing about it from the health perspective, nothing. But from a religious perspective, that you just do it, you get used to it, and then that's it. And I still been doing it now that I know the benefit of it, the health
yeah,
benefit of it. But when I was young, I didn't know, what it was. But then later on, we find out that it's good for you.
yeah. Yeah. Now, the key thing about fasting, I just have to say this, is that when you stop fasting, it's very important that the foods that you're going to be hungry, you got to make sure you don't overeat and you want to try to be choosy to choose the foods that are good for you. You don't want to fast and then say, I'm free, I'm out of jail now, so I'm going to go eat like all the junk I can actually find and eat a ton of it. I think, as you were saying, if you bake it into your normal life and it's part of your habit and you don't try to be like the old adage of everything in moderation is
Yeah.
really true. Moderation is really important. Even moderation can be done in moderation. So every now and then let loose. okay, because that's good for your mental health as well. You know, knock yourself out sometimes. Like that's why I listen. I try to as I told you, like I have this privilege as being a doctor and talking to people and trying to help them. I really look to everybody as an individual, and I know that every now and then we just need to be able to let loose. And
That's it.
if you feel too bound up, like tied up, you're going to be stressed, and that's going to
Yeah.
actually hurt your health even more. So I always tell
Yeah.
people, also as part of knowing yourself, know what gives you pleasure and go
Yeah.
seek it every now and then. Don't do it all the time, but
Right. Right.
everything in moderation, even moderation.
A glass of wine, that's fine if you have it. I'm just saying that for myself. Because like you said, it just if you know yourself once in a while, let it loose. But too much of something is never good. Like too much of anything, even if it's fun, even if it's happy thing, but make sure balance,
Yeah,
diet balance,
yeah,
relationship, stress, everything, work. As long as you can have those, then I think for me, my advice to people is that as long as you are happy and like you said, once in a while, have fun with life
yeah.
and don't be too serious. And that's what health means. Don't wait till you get sick to start these things that we talked about.
Right, right. Get ahead of the game. You know,
Especially if you have all those things that you said in our body, like a paint, it's already there. So let's activate it and use it.
yeah. And if you could do it eating foods that you already love, and again, this is what I talk about in my YouTube channel. Is sort of like I post things all the time that people send me questions. What should I do? What should I eat? How do I manage this? The great thing about I think the modern world, because we have access to so much information, is find information, a source of information, like watching this program or listening to this podcast, where you're getting information that you can trust, that this reasonable. Like everything we talked about today is very reasonable.
Yeah.
Nobody, we have not said one thing that's an extreme. All right.
No.
And everything that we've talked about is really grounded in science, which is
Mhm.
fact. All right. No need to be confused
No.
about things. And just follow your own instincts, listen to your body, and find voices that you trust to be able to guide you from time to time.
Yeah. But Dr. William, even like, so there's a time that people eat junk food or food that is not good for them. After a while, their body literally tell them like, no, this, give me something different, give me something fresh. So listening to your intuition, like that is very helpful
Yeah.
too. I
Yes,
there's a time
exactly.
that if I eat something, I feel like I have to have a salad. I have to have a fruit. It just out of nowhere it comes to me, and I'm like, oh, too much of carb, too much of French fries. If you listen to yourself, it actually helps. Uh, Before I let you go, what is your next step, and what are you working on now in order to keep us healthy and give us more information on what we should do to live a long life?
Yeah, well, thanks for asking. So, I'm a scientist, and so I'm continuing to build on the work that I've been doing for 30 years. As you mentioned already, I'm looking at longevity, but I'm not just looking at adding more years to your life. I'm figuring out how to add more life to your years, which is really about thriving. And there's a new
Yeah.
science of thriving that is very exciting. I'm going to
Hmm.
be writing about this in my next book.
Okay.
And it's going to be really about, how do you live long and live well all at the same time? Because who doesn't want to live a long time, right? I mean, you don't want to live as
Yeah.
long as you can, but you want to really enjoy your life. And I think that too many of us just think about how many candles you can put in your birthday cake, but that's not the point.
No.
You want to really enjoy your life. You want to enjoy it now too, by the way. You don't want to just wait for some later time. You
Right.
should, or when you retire or whenever else, you want to really just find ways to be reasonable and enjoy your life every step of the way. So I'm working on this. What you can eat to actually like light up your life as you get older and healthier, and yeah, that's really what I'm doing now.
That's right up my alley. I love that.
Okay.
Like you said, live life, know what it is. Like you said, what is a health? What is living life? To be
Yeah.
happy, no matter what age you are, no matter what you do, as long as, and we were looking forward to that book. And by the way, before I let you go, I wanted to mention I do um, get up in the morning and I actually read both of your book and
Ah,
talk about 1 hour. I actually took more hour, and I was next thing I was it was so interesting. I was keep reading it, and next thing you know, it's like 2 hour passes by. I'm like, oh, I have to go to work, or I have to do something like that. But definitely, highly recommend your book to our listeners because both books are amazingly good, and you list a lot of foods in there, and you give a lot of good steps and strategies and technique for people to apply in order to stay healthy and be healthy before they get sick and use all of that stuff. So thank you for that.
Thanks very much. It's a real pleasure to be on.
Oh my God. Thank you so much, Dr. William. I would definitely bring you back because we will have a lot more questions from our listeners. And then we will do this again. And I can't wait for your book to come out. And I will be the first one to get that.
Thanks very much.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of Inner Power Insights. I hope you loved this conversation with Dr. William Lee as much as I did. If you're hungry for more, pun totally intended, I've got something special for you. By joining our Patreon community, you'll unlock a treasure chest of exclusive perks, like early access to every episode, listen in on Mondays before the rest of the world, rapid-fire Q&A sessions with our guests, packed with insights and fun moments you won't hear anywhere else, access to a private community where we connect, share, and grow together, the chance to submit your own questions for future guests, and even priority voting to help shape the future of the show. Yes, you get a say in who we bring on next. Joining Patreon is the best way to support the show and keep these meaningful conversations coming. So, head over to patreon.com/innerpowerinsights to join today. Thank you for being part of our journey. And as always, keep striving, keep learning, and keep unlocking your inner power. See you next time.